On the agreed-upon betrothal day, Shun Jiao broke his promise again, claiming to accompany his frail adopted sister to Jiangnan for medical treatment. Even the betrothal geese were boiled into soup to nourish his adopted sister. The clan elders waited and waited, and the dignitaries who came to offer congratulations gradually departed. I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. 3 months later, he rushed back, travel-worn, and apologized at my door at the first opportunity. Aang is in poor health and doesn't have your noble background. In this vast capital, she can only rely on me. You're her elder sister-in-law. Don't be angry with your younger sister. I sat behind the beaded curtain, looking at the dowry list, and nodded. He calmly asked the butler to see the guests out. What he didn't know was that in the 2nd month after he left the capital, I exchanged marriage contracts with the heir of the Marquis of Zhongyi. Shun Jiao stood in the flower hall, carrying the dampness of the south with him. Even the corners of his robe spoke of his journey's dust. Jade and pearl curtains swayed between us, fragmenting his figure into a blur. He stood outside the curtain, his voice carrying just the right amount of weariness and apology. I didn't mean not to come that day. It's just that Aang vomited blood, and her illness was severe. You know, Vice General Liu only had this one younger sister. He died on the battlefield. So I treat Yinga as my own sister. Liu Yingying is the younger sister of Vice General Shun Jiao. 2 years ago, Vice General Liu died in battle at the border. After returning to the capital, Shun Jiao brought Liu Yingying to his side and recognized her as his adopted sister. That was the 2nd year we fell in love. He used to take me horseback riding in the suburbs, searching for plum blossoms in the snow, and teaching me archery hand in hand. He even made me a small red sandalwood bow with his own hands. But everything changed after Liu Ying came. She feared the cold, so treading through snow became sitting around the hearth. Her health was weak and she couldn't bear the jolting, so the horseback riding we'd agreed on became a boat tour. She said she couldn't stand the cold glint of sharp weapons, and always had nightmares at night, so later even that rosewood bow was put on a high shelf. I used to think that, since she was the orphan of a general, it was only right to take extra care of her. It wasn't until I was abandoned time and time again, watching the position that originally belonged to me being taken over, that I gradually understood. Some boundaries had long been blurred by Shun Jiao's so-called helplessness. At this moment, hearing him mention this reason that he had said countless times again, I actually felt a little tired. My fingertip brushed over the gold-lettered seal of the Marquis of Zhongyi's mansion on the dowry list, and I looked up, watching him through the beaded curtain. Yes, I know you value loyalty and righteousness above all else. My voice was calm, betraying no emotion. Back then, wasn't it precisely because of his loyalty and righteousness that I fell in love with him? Who would have thought that it would become the reason for our parting ways today? He didn't hear the resoluteness in my words. He seemed relieved, thinking I was finally being considerate as usual, and his tone became lighter. You've always been considerate of the bigger picture, kind and good-hearted. I thank you on behalf of a Ying. You know my nature. You are the only one for me in this life, and I will never have another. Hearing his heartfelt words, I couldn't help but force a bitter smile. It's true that he loves me, but every time, he would say that I was the most important thing to him. And then choose Liu Yingying. Shun Jiao wanted to say more, but I didn't want to hear it. The marriage matters are complicated, so I won't keep you. General, you've returned weary from your journey. You should rest well. His expression was gentle, and his tone carried a hint of guilt. I will hunt a better pair of betrothal geese for you, and find someone to choose a more auspicious day for the engagement. Shun Jiao thought that I would still marry him. I looked at the familiar joy in his eyes, and swallowed the words that had reached my lips. He thought I was still waiting for him to offer the bride price. Thought I would let it go lightly as I always had. Let him think that way then. To expose it now would seem like I was doing it on purpose. Besides, my marriage with the Marquis of Zhongyi's family is settled, and it will reach his ears sooner or later. 2. The Marquis's wife came to visit, and my mother had me waiting in the flower hall early. She held my hand and said softly, "Chiyue, don't be nervous. The Marquis's wife is a reasonable person, and the heir is also an upright gentleman." I nodded, feeling not much apprehension in my heart, but rather a sense of peace. The Marquis's mansion was of high status, and my father held a second-rank official position with real power, so it couldn't be too bad. Having experienced the exhausting entanglement with Shen Zhao, I now only seek stability and respect. When the Marquis's wife entered, surrounded by attendants, she carried with her an air of refined scholarly grace. It was completely different from the rough and unrestrained atmosphere of a military family like the Pei family. Her gaze was gentle, and when it fell on me, there was no scrutiny, only admiration. She smiled and said to my mother, "This must be Chiyue. Good child, you've been wronged." This was not mere politeness, but a sincere understanding of my previous situation. My heart warmed slightly, and I curtsied. The Marquis's wife personally helped me up, led me to sit beside her, and spoke in a kind but measured tone. "Get up quickly. My son is a bit taciturn, but he values promises above all else. Since he has sought to marry you, he will surely cherish you." She didn't rush to question me but instead spoke in detail to my mother about the characteristics and preferences of the heir. The entire household was shocked that he, known for his strict self-discipline and avoidance of women since childhood, would take the initiative to seek a marriage. The Marquis's wife looked at me, her gaze clear. After he returned, he told me that the Moon family's daughter, even in such circumstances, could maintain her integrity without resentment or anger, and her character was admirable. He is willing to treat her with the respect due to a principal wife, seeking a lifetime of mutual respect and understanding. A lifetime of respect and understanding. This moves me more than any oath of love. I looked through the window at the courtyard, where the generous betrothal gifts left by the Marquis's residents were being carried into the treasury in an orderly manner. The white-feathered, red-crowned wild geese were housed in spacious wooden cages, looking vigorous and healthy. I received the news early. This betrothal gift was hunted by the heir apparent of Marquis Zhongyi, who rode 800 miles in haste to a warm place in the south and guarded it for several days and nights. That solemnity was in stark contrast to the haste and disarray of 3 months prior. Shen Zhao says only you but always abandons me in his actions, at least in terms of etiquette. This never-before-seen heir apparent truly values and respects me. My mother was clearly extremely satisfied as well, chatting happily with the Marchioness when they discussed the wedding date. The Marchioness specifically asked for my opinion. "Chiyu, do you think it would be good to set the wedding date for next spring? It's a bit snug, but the manor has already prepared everything, and you certainly won't be wronged." I nodded slightly. "I'll leave it to Madam and Mother to decide." After seeing the Marchioness off, Mother's eyes held a hint of relief. "Chiyu, your mother can finally rest assured. The Marquis of Zhongyi's household has a righteous reputation, and the heir is a man of integrity. This is truly a good match for you." I was stunned for a moment. Yes, a good match, not because the Marquis's household is of higher status, but because they gave me what I needed most, the most basic thing, respect, and at this moment, Shen Zhao is probably still busy conditioning his adopted sister's body and planning how to hunt a new pair of betrothal geese. But he doesn't know, I won't want the betrothal geese, and I won't want him even more. 3 days later, I went up the mountain to Hugua Temple to pray for blessings. My mother said that since the wedding date had been set, I should go and pray for peace for the upcoming marriage. As I reached the blessing pavilion halfway up the mountain, I saw 2 familiar figures in the distance. Shen Zhao was accompanying Liu Yingying as she chose in front of the wooden frame filled with concentric knots. Liu Yingying, dressed in a plain white dress, leaned weakly against Shenjiao's side. Her fingertip resting on a concentric knot embroidered with twin lotus flowers in red gold thread. That was the style I used to request every year. My steps faltered slightly, but I then walked forward calmly. Now that I've let go, there's no need to avoid it. Shenjiao first saw me, his expression suddenly flustered. Qiyu, why are you here? Liu Yingying turned back at the sound of his voice, a hint of surprise flashing in her eyes, followed by her signature timid smile. Sister Yu is also here for a concentric knot. What a coincidence. I was just looking at this one. As she spoke, her fingers remained tightly clutching the concentric knot, as if afraid I would snatch it away. Shenjiao looked at me, then at Liu Yingying, a struggle flashing across his face. Finally, he spoke, his tone carrying his usual, chillingly negotiable manner. Qiyu, Ying has only just recovered, and it's rare for her to be in such high spirits. It's just a concentric knot. You've always been generous, so why not let her have it? It's like this again. It's always like this. It used to be about treading through snow, riding horses, and archery. But now he even wants me to yield a concentric knot. I quietly watched Shenjiao, and suddenly felt that his embarrassed expression at this moment was somewhat ridiculous. My voice was calm and even. General Pei, this concentric knot was specially ordered by me from the temple 3 days ago through a maidservant. I've come specifically today to retrieve it. Liu Yingying's expression changed slightly, and her fingers holding the concentric knot tightened a little. Shenjiao was stunned, obviously not expecting this. He frowned and looked at Liu Yingying. Since Qiyu ordered it, could you choose another one? It seemed like a negotiation with me, but in reality, it was a straightforward command. Towards Liu Yingying, he was always cautious, even his inquiries were roundabout. Liu Yingying's eyes instantly reddened, but she forced a smile and said, I just thought this one was particularly beautiful. Since Sister Yu likes it, I'll give it to her. As she said give, she suddenly coughed violently. Liu Yingying's face was flushed, and there were traces of blood on her handkerchief. Shenjiao looked flustered and looked at me again, his tone carrying a blame that even he didn't realize. Qiyu, it's just a concentric knot. You could have just given it to her. Why did you have to fight over it? I'll accompany you to choose a new concentric knot for us later. I looked at that glaring red, and then at Shenjiao's barely suppressed expression of blame. It felt somewhat absurd and laughable. In the past, because I liked Shenjiao, I loved everything connected to him and tolerated everything. Now, I don't want to tolerate it anymore. I calmly took back the concentric knot, not yielding in the slightest. This is made of imperial brocade. It wouldn't be appropriate if it were used by someone unrelated. If you insist on giving it to your younger sister, then I don't mind taking a trip to the imperial court. Liu Yingying's hand recoiled as if she had been shocked. Shenjiao's expression changed abruptly, his lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something. His gaze swept over my face, which was devoid of any emotion, and finally turned into a suppressed cold snort. He turned around and deliberately softened his voice to Liu Yingying. In that case, Ying, let's choose another one. Watching Shenjiao's focused and gentle profile, I suddenly felt that the remaining bitterness in my chest had dissipated. I stopped looking at them and walked towards the wishing tree with the reunited concentric knot. As I tied it to a high branch, the corner of my eye caught Shenjiao personally hanging another one for Liu Yingying. His movements were careful, overlapping with the memory of him picking plum blossoms for me. Only a faint sense of irony flashed through my heart. The scene I had once longed for was presented in such an absurd way. Fine. The drizzle came quietly, and I turned to descend the mountain. Without looking back, the capital is in sight, and my new path lies ahead. Their drama is no longer my concern, for it hadn't been 2 days since returning from Hugua Temple when Shenjiao sent someone with a letter, saying he couldn't make it to the maple viewing appointment at West Mountain. I stared blankly at the plain stationery for a while, I remembered last year when the maple leaves were at their reddest. He vowed to take me to the highest point of West Mountain this year to see the reddest maples. I'm afraid Shen Zhao is displeased that I didn't give way to Liu Yingying that day. Not going to see the autumn leaves is his petty punishment for me. As he sees it, I chuckled softly. Bringing the stationery closer to the candlelight, watching it curl, blacken, and turn to ashes, I had already forgotten about seeing the autumn leaves, and even if I had remembered, I wouldn't have gone. Now it's just as well, saving me the trouble of finding an excuse. After the start of winter, the capital city had its first snowfall. As expected, Shen Zhao never appeared again. I heard that Liu Yingying was afraid of the cold, and the general's mansion was in a flurry of activity, so he couldn't get away. On this day, Zhu Yang, the heir of Marquis Zhongyi, sent a note inviting me to enjoy the snow scenery at the lakeside pavilion. When I received the note, I was staring blankly at the withered plum tree outside the window. The plain stationery carried a faint scent of pine, the ink Zhu Yang habitually used. He said the snow scene at the lake pavilion was exceptionally beautiful, asking if he might have the pleasure of enjoying it together. My gaze landed on the words "enjoy it together." If it were before, I would surely have been restless all night for such an invitation, repeatedly considering my attire and manners, afraid of disappointing someone's feelings. But now, my heart is as calm as a frozen lake. It turns out that when you are truly cherished, you don't need to be so cautious. I suddenly remembered this time last year when Shen Zhao also invited me to appreciate the snow. At that time, Liu Yingying said she felt chest tightness, and he hurriedly left. Because Liu Yingying was afraid of the cold, he even took my hand warmer, worth 1,000 gold and capable of staying warm for 3 hours. When he left, leaving me alone in the freezing snow, later, I found out that he had gone to the east of the city to buy Liu Yingying the newly released rouge. Looking back now, that snow was so cold that my bones ached. Considering the Zhu family, the Marquis of Zhongyi, has been a family of officials for generations, the heir wouldn't do such a thing. I chuckled softly and accepted the invitation. 5. Arriving at the Lake Heart Pavilion, I discovered that he had transplanted 2 red maple trees beside it. White snow covered the crimson maple leaves, a breathtaking beauty. He poured tea for me. I heard that Miss Yu likes maple leaves, but they are hard to find on snowy days, so I had 2 transplanted here. I held the warm tea, watching the snowflakes sparkle among the maple leaves. This care warms even my fingertips. I held the warm tea, watching the maple leaves quietly burn in the snow. Strangely, sitting across from Zhu Yang is more comfortable than I imagined. Unlike Shen Zhao, who always tries to fill the silence with words, he doesn't deliberately show off his talent like those young masters. We watched the snow like this, occasionally exchanging a few words about tea, or commenting on the shape of the maple leaves. He suddenly said, "These maple leaves remind me of the scenery on the north slope of West Mountain. When the snow melts in the spring, perhaps we can go and take a look." Not a promise, just an ordinary suggestion. But I can already imagine the sight of maple trees sprouting all over the mountains and fields at that time. Okay, I agreed without thinking, subconsciously. Even I was surprised for a moment. The 2 of us fell silent for a moment, the only sound in the world the rustling of falling snow. In the fragrant mist of tea, I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of peace and steadiness. No unease, no calculation. So this is what true peace feels like. A deep and tranquil flow, no need to worry about who might suddenly leave, no need to fear being compared to anyone. In his presence, I am simply Lin Qiue, and that is enough. The snow reflected in his eyes. Bright but not glaring, just like him. His presence was just right. 6. Twilight was beginning to fall as the carriage returned from the lakeside pavilion. As the carriage approached the corner of the long street, its speed gradually decreased. I lifted a corner of the curtain to peek out. just in time to see Shen Zhao riding alone from the direction of the general's mansion. He wore a black cloak, his shoulders covered in fine snow, as if he had been standing in the snow for a long time. Seeing me and Zhu Yang in the same carriage, his pupils suddenly contracted, and he abruptly pulled on the reins. He stopped in front of the carriage, his gaze sweeping over Zhu Yang like a knife. "And who is this?" Before I could speak, Zhu Yang nodded slightly. "Marquis of Zhongyi." Zhu Yang. Shen Zhao's expression changed, and the hand holding the reins tightened. He had obviously heard of Zhu Yang's name, but he didn't expect to be returning in the same carriage as me. I was really annoyed by Shen Zhao's questioning expression, and not wanting to get entangled with him, I simply changed the subject and asked, "Does General Pei have something to say?" Shen Zhao's expression changed, and after a moment of silence, he finally didn't question her. He suddenly softened his tone. "Aang can't stand the cold. I plan to take her to Jiangnan for the winter, and I will propose to you as soon as we return in the spring." I chuckled, my tone calm. "When the general returns. What does it have to do with me?" Shen Zhao was taken aback, but still patiently said, "Stop it, Qi Yu. Just wait for me obediently, and I will marry you back in glory." He frowned, looking as if he had already lowered his head first, but was running out of patience with my unreasonable behavior. Zhu Yang's lips curled into a playful smile upon hearing this. He was about to speak when I cut him off. "Your sister is sensitive to the cold. General, you'd best be on your way quickly. It's getting late. If you don't return soon you might miss the hour. General, please step aside." Having said that, I lowered the curtain, completely separating our worlds. Outside the curtain, the light snow gradually thickened, and the cold was biting. Inside the curtain, it was incredibly warm, as if it was spring. Zhu Yang suddenly joked, "Why didn't you tell him about our marriage?" I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Since we are already irrelevant people, why add to the entanglement and annoyance? As the joyous event approaches, invitations will be sent to the general's mansion, and he will naturally know then." Zhu Yang looked at me and nodded knowingly. The smile on his face didn't diminish. Indeed, 7. In the 12th lunar month, news came from Jiangnan. It was said that the young General Pei, to win a smile from a fair lady, had reserved the entire plum garden for his adopted sister to enjoy. He also spent a fortune to buy warm jade chess. Just because Liu Yingying said she liked the sound of the pieces falling, tea houses and taverns are all spreading the word, marveling at their earth-shattering brother-sisterly love. The maid said she had been carefully observing my expression these days. I was comparing the color of the pearls on the wedding dress, and only hummed a faint acknowledgement when I heard this. Those sensational rumors now sound like tales from another lifetime. It was the box of Eastern pearls Zhu Yang sent yesterday that were truly impressive, each one round and full, perfect for my wedding dress. As the year drew to a close, I heard that Shen Zhao had put on a fireworks display for Liu Yingying. The sky was ablaze with light, illuminating the entire city of Jinling, said to be a beauty beyond earthly realms. It was the night Zhu Yang came to see me, bringing a glass lamp. The lamp's walls were painted with delicate snowy plum blossoms, and as it gently turned, the light and shadows flowed like a pouring galaxy. He said casually, "I passed by the lantern market and thought it looked nice, and that you would like it." I walked along the corridor carrying the lamp, watching the snow light intertwine with the lamp's glow. Compared to the highly anticipated fireworks display in Jiangnan, this lamp lit just for me alone moves me even more. 8. On the wedding day, the entire city was adorned in red. I sat before the mirror in my gold-embroidered wedding gown as my mother placed the phoenix coronet on my head. Suddenly, the matchmaker burst in, flustered, "Madam, Miss, General Pei. General Pei is back." In the bronze mirror, I saw my calm and unwavering eyes. I stood up, my red gold-embroidered shoes stepping steadily over the threshold. "The auspicious hour has arrived. Don't keep the heir waiting." A look of worry flashed across my mother's face, but seeing my composure, she decisively ordered my martial arts-trained second brother to stop Shen Zhao. My eldest brother then came in to carry me out. I lay on my elder brother's broad back, adorned in my phoenix coronet and bridal robes, moving step by step away from my chambers behind me, reaching the moon gate. I indeed saw Shen Zhao surrounded by a throng of family servants and guards. My second brother was fighting him, the two locked in a stalemate. Shen Zhao's hair crown was askew, his official robe was covered in dust, and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing it was me, he relaxed his grip, staring intently at me, his voice hoarse and broken. "Qiyu, tell me this isn't true. Didn't we agree that you would wait for me to propose marriage in the spring? Why did you break your promise and marry someone else?" As the beaded curtain on my forehead swayed gently, I looked at him calmly. "The wedding invitations have already been sent to the general's mansion. My marriage with a Yang was decided last year. In the second month after you accompanied your younger sister to Jiangnan." Shen Zhao staggered back a couple of steps. "I can explain." My elder brother's tone was stern as he defended me. "Explain what?" "Explain how you left my sister alone in the empty hall on the engagement day, or explain how the betrothal geese ended up in someone else's stomach. Do you know that you've made Qiyu the laughingstock of the entire capital? You've ruined her reputation. If it weren't for the Marquis's residents valuing Qiyu and not minding, what would she do for the rest of her life? Am I supposed to hold my nose and choke down the half-cooked meal you and Liu Yingying have made?" All while enduring insults and ridicule. The more his elder brother spoke, the angrier he became, showing Shen Zhao no respect whatsoever. Shen Zhao's face grew paler and paler with each question from his brother. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Those eyes, usually full of tenderness, were now filled only with panic. "A Ying, she's just a sister. How can she compare to Qiyu?" Listening to these words, I didn't even feel the irony anymore, so I repeated calmly, "Whether she's a sister or someone else, what does it have to do with me?" Shen Zhao seemed stung by these words and stepped forward anxiously. "Qiyu, listen to me," I interrupted him. "General Pei, today is my wedding day. If you still have any lingering affection, you should leave quietly. If you insist on causing trouble, the general's mansion is not to be trifled with, and neither is my Yu family." He stood there, his lips trembling, his eyes, which once made my heart flutter, now filled with pain, but my heart was as still as water, without even the slightest ripple. "Let's go," I said softly to my elder brother. 9. The bridal sedan chair started slowly, accompanied by joyous music. I sat upright in the sedan, listening to the discussions of the people on the street, and learned that Shen Zhao was following far behind the ceremonial guard. Looking through the sedan curtain, I saw him riding that familiar black horse, maintaining a distance of more than 10 yards. Neither approaching nor leaving, Zhu Yang rode his horse beside the sedan chair and chuckled. He's learned his lesson, knowing to keep his distance. I lowered my eyes and adjusted the hairpin at my temple. The streets are originally official roads. Which road he wants to take has nothing to do with us. When we arrived at Zhuqiu Street, a commotion suddenly broke out behind us. A guard rushed through the crowd in a panic, kneeling unsteadily. "General, Miss Liu heard that you returned to the capital overnight and insisted on rushing back from Jiangnan. She just fainted at the city gate." Shen Zhao reined in his horse, his figure congealing into a stiff silhouette at the end of the long street. The joyous music continued, and the bridal sedan chair moved forward steadily. Just as the sedan chair was about to turn towards the direction of the Marquis of Zhongyi's residence, an unfamiliar-looking maidservant suddenly squeezed to the window of the sedan chair and lowered her voice to say, "Miss Yu, the general asked me to pass on a message. He bids you farewell for today. But please remember, even if the ceremony is completed and you are married, he will wait for you to change your mind." I smirked mockingly behind the veil. "Go back and tell him." If General Pei has lost his mind, he should seek treatment from the imperial physician. Instead of acting crazy on my joyous day, the little maid retreated with a pale face. The sound of hurried hoofbeats, receding into the distance, drifted over. This time, he still chose the one who needed him. Will you feel regret? Ju Yang asked softly from outside the carriage. I breathed a sigh of relief. I only feel fortunate to have seen clearly in time, fortunate to have not been mistaken for life. The bridal sedan chair landed steadily in front of the Marquis residence. Amidst the joyful singing of the wedding hostess, I placed my hand in Ju Yang's palm. Warmth, peace of mind. 10. Married life is more peaceful than I imagined. The Marquis of Zhongyi's household has simple rules, and Ju Yang treats me with gentle courtesy. Every day he goes to the Yamen to sign in, and when he returns, he brings me snacks from the market or a rare book I mentioned. That day was his day off, and he was summoned by the old Marquis to the study to discuss matters. While I was pruning the flowers in the courtyard, I suddenly remembered that he had said the other day that he had an ancient painting to share with me, which was kept on the display shelves in the study. His study was so tidy it was almost rigid, with only the display shelves on the east wall appearing slightly cluttered. I searched as he said, but when I was taking the painting, I accidentally knocked off a box made of rosewood. The lid fell open, and a scroll rolled out, slowly unfurling on the ground. The painting depicted a girl in red, riding a white horse and drawing a bow, her eyebrows raised, full of spirit. The background was the Western Hills hunting grounds, with the colors of autumn in the distance. I stood there, stunned. That was me during the autumn hunt a few years ago. At that time, my father had just been promoted to the Ministry of Revenue and was specially allowed to bring his family to participate in the autumn hunt. I've always liked archery, and at that time the targets for the women were closer, relying on what Shen Zhao taught me. I hit the bullseye with an arrow and received cheers from the audience. He said then that the woman he loved should be so flamboyant and bright. But since Liu Ying came, Shen Zhao said that women should be gentle and demure, and forbade me from touching bows and arrows again. That small red sandalwood bow has been gathering dust for many years. I carefully unrolled the scroll, and there was a line of small characters in the lower right corner. Autumn, the 12th year of Yonglong, first glimpse of the West Mountain hunting grounds. The 12th year of Yonglong, that was 4 years ago. At that time, Ju Yang should have been with the old Marquis at the grounds, but I have no impression at all. The drawing paper is already yellowed, with worn edges, clearly showing it has been frequently caressed and viewed. Footsteps came from outside the door, and Ju Yang's voice rang out, looking for the painting. I quickly rolled up the scroll, but he had already walked behind me, his eyes falling on the scroll, and he paused slightly. I didn't know what to say for a moment. He took the scroll, gently stroked the edge of the scroll, and said in a calm tone, "Did I scare you?" I carefully chose my words. "I just didn't expect you to remember me after so long." He walked to the window and re-rolled the scroll. "I was there at the autumn hunt that year. Your arrow was beautiful." They were simple words, but I could hear the sincerity in them. "I never even noticed you." There wasn't a hint of resentment in his tone, rather a faint smile. "Back then, you only had eyes for little General Pei. He taught you archery. Everyone could see it." My cheeks grew warm at that time. My heart and eyes were filled with Shen Zhao. How could I see anyone else? "Then why?" He turned to look at me, his eyes clear. "Why didn't you say so earlier? At that time, since your heart belonged to another, why should I disturb you? Later, after you had suffered so much, I should not have taken advantage of your vulnerability even more." Then this painting, I didn't finish the question, but he understood my meaning. He admitted frankly, "It was my selfishness, that day. Seeing you shoot arrows, I came back and painted it. I thought that even if we couldn't be together, it would be good to have a keepsake." I looked at him, suddenly understanding why the Marquis's proposal was so solemn. and why he always treated me with a little more patience. It turns out it wasn't my parents' arrangement, nor was it pity for my plight. It was that autumn day 4 years ago when he engraved my image in his heart. He handed me the painting. I've kept this painting for many years. Now it's returned to its rightful owner. Want to learn archery again? I'll teach you. I took the scroll, my fingertips trembling slightly. Those aspects of myself that Shen Zhao had gradually rejected and suppressed were, in this man's eyes, beautiful things worth cherishing. Okay, I heard my own voice. Filled with a long-lost joy, he smiled, his brow and eyes softening in a way that made him look gentler than usual. Tomorrow we'll go to the West Meadow. I just got a good bow. Perfect for you. He turned to put away the scroll, and I stood there, the delicate texture of the old paper still lingering on my fingertips. Something in my heart seemed to break through the ice. It turns out that when I gave up the rosewood bow and hid all my sharp edges for Shen Zhao's sake, because he said a woman should be gentle, someone had already carefully collected my original appearance. A pang of bitterness welled up in my chest. But it was quickly washed away by an even more surging torrent of warmth. It was a tremor of being seen and cherished. I suddenly understood why Zhu Yang would occasionally ask if I still practiced martial arts, if I still remembered the essentials of archery. That wasn't ordinary small talk. He was cautiously confirming whether the vibrant girl in his memory was still there. That painting was like a key, unlocking the door in my heart that Shen Zhao had invisibly locked. Behind the door is the bright self that was almost forgotten, and outside the door stands Zhu Yang. He holds a light, waiting with a smile for more than 4 years. 11. The next day, Zhu Yang indeed took me to the west suburb racecourse as promised. He had prepared a delicate Osage orange bow, with moderate strength, just right for women to use. I took the bow, my fingertips stroking the smooth bow. A long-lost sense of familiarity welled up in my heart. Nock an arrow, draw the string, pull the bow. The movements were a bit rusty, but the posture was not forgotten. With a whoosh, the arrow left the string. Although it didn't hit the bullseye, it still stuck firmly into the edge of the target. Zhu Yang clapped his hands from the side, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration. The foundation is still there. A little practice will restore it. He walked forward, but did not cover my hand directly to teach me personally as Shen Zhao had done back then, just standing beside me, gently reminding me of the key points of force and aiming. Relax your shoulders, use your eyes as a ruler, and calm your heart. I adjusted accordingly, and the second arrow was much closer to the bullseye. Sweat trickled down my forehead, but I felt incredibly refreshed. It felt as if the shackles that had bound me for years, forged by Shen Zhao and the eyes of the world, were breaking apart inch by inch with each arrow shot. We lingered at the horse farm for half a day, only returning home when the sun began to set. The carriage had just come to a stop in front of the Marquis residence, and before we could even get out, we heard a commotion. Shen Zhao's voice was hoarse and agitated. "Qiyu, let me see Qiyu." He was deadlocked with the guards below the steps, his official robe slightly wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. His eyes suddenly lit up when he saw me. "I'm sorry, Qiyu. Aang has been unwell for the past few days, and I really couldn't get away. Now that she's slightly better, I came to see you immediately." An unspeakable sense of absurdity washed over me. I suddenly wanted to laugh at him for never understanding that what I cared about was never whether Liu Yingying was sick or not, but rather his every unwavering choice, and the habit of always placing me in a position of waiting and concession. Zhu Yang stepped forward, shielding me behind him, his voice cold. "General Pei is here to inform you. How do you find the time to harass my wife while taking care of others?" A cold laugh escaped from Zhu Yang's lips, emphasizing the word wife. Shen Zhao's face paled, and he said urgently, "That's not it, Qiyu. You're the only one in my heart. Let's start over. I won't let you feel wronged again." I watched the moment
He didn't even look at Shinjiao, but gently pushed a plate of peeled lotus seeds in front of me. The tone was filled with undisguised sarcasm. The rules in General Pei's manor are certainly unique. An unofficial second wife can socialize everywhere as if she were the mistress of the house before even marrying into the family. Today, this young master has truly broadened his horizons. However, the Marquis's manor has strict rules. If any ignorant riffraff offends my wife, this young master will certainly make her regret it. With one sentence, he shattered Shinjiao's self-deceiving pretense. Again, Liu Yingying was scolded until her face turned red. Shinjiao's face instantly turned ashen. His lips moved, but he couldn't utter another word. I picked up a lotus seed and put it in my mouth. It was sweet and slightly bitter, and I smiled slightly at Zhu Yang. The lotus seeds are very good. Let's go see the flowers. The pair of figures standing stiffly behind me no longer stirred the slightest ripple in my heart. 13. Summer departs and autumn arrives. I am now 5 months pregnant. Zhu Yang treats me like a precious jewel, always making time to accompany me on walks in the courtyard despite his busy official duties, and carefully tucking me into bed at night. The entire Marquis estate is immersed in the joy of anticipating a new life. Meanwhile, Shinjiao and Liu Yingying's wedding was hastily completed amidst whispers. There was no elaborate dowry, nor sincere blessings from a hall full of guests. That wedding was more like a forced ceremony, revealing an undisguised haste and awkwardness. The general's mansion was soon shrouded in gloom after the marriage. Having achieved her desire to become Madame Pei, Liu Yingying shed all her feigned weakness. She no longer cautiously coughed blood to gain sympathy. After discovering old items related to me still hidden in the secret compartment of Shinjiao's study, she hysterically launched sharp accusations that struck right at Shinjiao's core. Shinjiao, now that you've married me, why won't you give me your heart as well? By keeping those things, are you trying to constantly remind me that I'll never measure up to her? But you've forgotten, she's long since married, had children, and is no longer a part of your life. At first, Shinjiao was still mindful of her frail, sickly constitution. He would try to reason with her, suppressing his anger, or simply avoid seeing her altogether. But he was swamped with military affairs, and the endless disputes made him make mistakes repeatedly. It was deep autumn, and Zhu Yang was reading a storybook to me and feeding me the pregnancy-preserving medicine. But the butler came in softly and reported in a low voice that Shinjiao was asking to see me. He stated that he would soon request to be transferred to the bitter and cold northern frontier to guard the border. Before leaving, I hope to exchange a few words with you. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yang did not immediately respond, but turned to look at me. His gaze was calm, filled with complete respect and trust. Placing the decision in my hands, I took the bowl of medicine, feeling the warmth of the porcelain against my fingertips, and slowly, firmly, shook my head. Between Shinjiao and me, everything has changed, and there is nothing to say. All his emotions have nothing to do with the warmth and stability within my reach. Seeing him is just asking for trouble. It is also unfair and a desecration to the person beside me who cherishes me. I raised my eyes and said calmly to the butler, "I'm not seeing anyone." The butler responded respectfully and withdrew. Zhu Yang reached out and completely enveloped my slightly cool hand in his warm, dry palm. The strength was firm and reassuring. 14. Time flows, like the blooming and falling of flowers in the courtyard, silent but certain. I heard from Shinjiao again on a deep autumn afternoon. An urgent military report was sent back from the frontier, along with General Pei's obituary. The northern frontier he had requested to be transferred to ultimately became his burial ground. Not long after he left, Liu Yingying, despite her illness, dragged her sick body and followed after him. That man who always valued responsibility and old affections was ultimately tormented into a state of unease and utter exhaustion. In a sudden battle, he revealed a flaw, fought valiantly to the death, and was buried in his horse's hide. As for Liu Yingying, when she heard the news of Shinjiao's death, her blood surged in the wrong direction, and she lost the remaining half of her life on the spot. At the time of death, his temples were full of white hair, weathered and worn. When the news reached the Marquis's mansion, I was sitting by the window in the warm pavilion, making small clothes for my son. Yang sat across from me, a cup of light tea at his hand, the other gently rocking the cradle beside him. Inside, our son, just past his first birthday, was sleeping soundly, his little mouth slightly pouting. After the butler finished his report in a low voice, there was a moment of silence in the warm pavilion. The needle and thread in my hand paused, and I looked up. Just in time to meet Yang's gaze. There was no worry in his eyes, only a calm tenderness. The waves in my heart that were once stirred by Shenjiao had long been smoothed by the real warmth and peace before me, leaving no trace. Understood, I said calmly to the butler. My voice sounded as if I were talking about something ordinary and unrelated to myself. If the general's mansion sends a notice of bereavement, send a condolence gift in return, as propriety dictates. The butler bowed and withdrew. Yang got up and walked to my side, without saying much, just gently draped a thicker cloak over my shoulders. He said softly, "Autumn is deep, and there's a strong breeze by the window. Be careful not to catch a cold." I looked up at him, the setting sun outside the window casting a warm halo around him. I reached out and intertwined my fingers with his, feeling the constant and reassuring warmth from his palm. I softly called out to him, the smile unconsciously spreading across my lips. "Husband, look at Yang. The way he sleeps really resembles you." He lowered his head, gazing at our son with me, his eyes filled with tenderness. The past is like the autumn wind sweeping through the courtyard outside the window, gone as soon as it blows. My world has long been filled to the brim with the simple warmth of the person before me. No room for anything else.